Hey guys, Shalana here. Welcome to the Binge Zone. On today's video, we're going to be recapping the Netflix original series Emily in Paris Season 1. Without further ado, let's just dive into the recap. The season starts off with Emily's boss Madeline being pregnant, and because of that, she can't work at the fashion firm in Paris, so she sends Emily instead. Because Emily cannot speak a word of French, she has trouble interacting with the people, especially her coworkers, who make it difficult for Emily to do her job. Despite all this, she manages to make a couple of new friends, one of whom happens to be her attractive new neighbor, Gabriel. Emily then manages to get her boss, Sylvie, to invite her to a soiree where Emily flirts and talks shop with a client, Lambert, who also happens to be Sylvie's married lover. And instead of working on the account, Sylvie makes Emily work on a project which is a suppository for old women with dry vaginas, but Emily has a problem with the product's name. Emily and her boyfriend Doug break up because he cannot deal with a long distance relationship, despite the fact that he made plans to come to Paris earlier. Emily ends up writing a post on Instagram about the drug, which is then tweeted by the CEO of Vaga Jeune. But in spite of the tweet going viral, Sylvie continues to show her dislike of Emily. Emily then attends and interrupts a commercial shoot with Lambert because she believes that the ad is sexist. Emily suggests that Lambert asks people online if they think the ad campaign is sexy or sexist. Lambert then sends Emily a sexy gift as a token of his appreciation for her social media idea that went viral. Emily is then saved by Camille when purchasing flowers and invites Emily to an art gallery opening where she works. There, Emily meets Randy Zimmer and convinces him that his hotel would benefit from having a unique smell. Randy arrives at Savoir for a meeting, but Randy is not completely sold on the idea, so Emily makes dinner reservations as a last-ditch effort to get him as a client. Emily then fucks up the dinner reservations, but calls Gabriel to save her at the last second, which ends up closing the deal. Emily and Gabriel end up making out before finding out that Gabriel has a girlfriend who happens to be Camille. And now Emily wants to avoid Camille given how she's kissed Gabriel, but they keep running into each other. Sylvie then pitches the idea to a new client, but Clara disapproves until Emily offers her own idea and Clara likes it. Now Sylvie, being the hater, wants Emily to delete her Instagram account because it's not a good look for Savoir. And Clara wants to shoot in the location of where Emily took her last Instagram photo, which influences Sylvie into letting Emily keep her account. Emily then meets the famous designer Pierre, but she unintentionally offends him with a heart-shaped charm, possibly losing him as a client. Emily begins dating a French professor but ends up breaking it off with him when she realizes he is as much a snob as Gabriel said he was. And Emily finds Pierre at the ballet of Swan Lake and apologizes to him, which gets Savoir another meeting with him. And during a lunch with Camille, Emily ends up finding out Camille's parents want to loan Gabriel money so he can have the restaurant he's always dreamed of, but he refused their offer. Emily then babysits American actress Brooklyn, but also uses her to advertise Pierre's clothing line by creating a social media presence for him. Brooklyn then ditches the Fortier party to go to a club and have fun there, and Emily loses track of her. Despite Gabriel and Emily's best effort, they cannot find Brooklyn until Emily enlists the help of Sylvie, which proves to be fruitful as they find Brooklyn in her hotel room. And even though Gabriel was helpful and it brought him closer to Emily, she decides to stay away from him. Emily then meets with Judith, whom is a member of the AFL, and asks Emily if Pierre can donate a dress to the fundraiser. Emily then models the dress at the auction because a model couldn't make it, and the dress is sold to the highest bidder, who turns out to be Grayspace. And unfortunately, it was a publicity stunt by two fashion designers as they shoot Emily with gray paint on stage, and it makes a big splash the next day. Emily then tries to smooth things over with Pierre by saying what Grayspace did was a sign of respect, but Pierre is not having it. And Sylvie then blames Emily for Pierre not wanting to debut his new collection line at the fashion show and fires Emily. Gabriel can now realize his dream and open a restaurant in Normandy, which forces him to break up with Camille and leave Emily. However, Emily is not officially fired and helps Pierre hijack his old venue in order to debut his new fashion collection, which makes him a hit at Fashion Week. And after celebrating at Gabriel's restaurant, Emily and Gabriel finally express their feelings for each other with sex, but Emily still doesn't want to pursue anything with him. And the season ends with Lambert doing business with Gabriel, which gets him to stay in Paris, but Camille wants to speak with Emily after she hears about the news. And guys, that's it for season 1 of Emily in Paris. Season 2 is right around the corner. I wonder what kind of crazy shenanigans Emily's gonna get into this season. Anyway guys, that's it for the recap. Until next time, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and binge on.